Hello guys, today we're going to be working on this Samsung dryer, model number in the display. Welcome to DIY Repair Now. Read all the warnings, and during this video you will see one or more of these icons to help you do this repair safe. And the complaint that we have with this dryer is that it's not heating. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to check voltage and check the wiring on the terminal block. When you pull this out, you have to pull it a little bit up and then it will come right out. Now over here we are testing for voltage, and we put one lead on the middle, which is neutral, and the other one in one of the side, and on the side, or the two on the side will have to give you 140 volts, and the one in the middle and one on the side, it will give you 120. Between neutral and one of the hot lines have to give you 120, 125, and on the other red and black it should give you 240 volts. Now disconnect the appliances to avoid electric shock, and now we're going to go ahead and remove this panel to be able to get to the components inside. Now I use a putty knife, but if you don't have a putty knife you can also do it with a screwdriver, but it's a little different. As you see, you can do it either or. I'll give you a demonstration of how to do it with either or, depends on what you have. Now we're doing it just with a flat head, but it's a little bit more complicated, and you can end up bending a little bit the top panel, and I'll show you that in a minute. This is the difference between a screwdriver and a putty knife. Putty knife goes all the way in, and the screwdriver you have to kind of lift it and force it up and end up bending a little bit the top part. Now remove these clamps from these two wires. One is for the light and the other one is for the door switch. Now once you do that, remove the three screws that are holding the front panel. Those are Phillips screws. Push these stops in to be able to release it. And now we can access to the door switch. Now go ahead and hold this white piece and then remove it with the other hand. Remove the harness with the other hand. I'm going to go ahead and show you in a picture, because this piece sometimes just flies away and is nowhere to be found, or it breaks and it can break your switch. As you see, I grab it with one hand and remove the harness with the other one. Remember, this top panel have to be leaning on your arm or your head while you do that, the way you give some space to this wire. And then, because if you lean the top panel to the wall or all the way back, the green cable is going to be too tight. Now go ahead and remove and disconnect the humidity sensor harness, and remove all four screws that are holding this drum panel. There are 4 screws on the side, on either side, and then one on the bottom, total of 5. Those are the wheels. Those are the wheels that the drum sits in place, and that's how we can get to the drum. Now this is a video from another repair, but this is how you remove. This is a demonstration on how to remove the belt, and later on I'm gonna go ahead and show you a video on how to put it back on as well. That's very important. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the drum out of the way, and now we're going to go ahead and test for continuity. As you see, I'm testing the heat element right there, and it's not giving me any continuity. This is the high limit thermostat and checked okay, and this is the cutoff thermostat and checked okay. So right now, so far, it's not giving me any continuity on the heat element. So to do a better test, we're going to go ahead and remove one terminal from each thermostat and also the heat element, just to get a better reading with our tester. Once you remove one terminal, you should get better reading. That way nothing is coming back in another wire. You know for sure that that heat element is not giving me any continuity, so we need a new heat elements, because these other two thermostats are checking fine. As you see, it's giving me continuity. This one is kind of has a little bit of rust on top, so but once I get it in place, it does give me continuity, and that means that this thermostat is fine. So it's 2 different ways to do this repair. You can replace the whole housing, including the thermostats and the heat element, or you can replace only the heat element and the inside. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and replace the heat element and the inside, because it's more affordable for the customer If you decide to get the whole thing, it's going to be more pricey, but it's going to be more simple to do, because otherwise you have to remove all these screws to be able to remove the top panel and get to the heat element. Now this is all Phillips screws that you have to remove all the way around, including the Phillips screws, one of the Phillips screws from each thermostat to be able to release it. And as you see, it comes right off. Be careful with sharp objects, because right there, those you have to kind of straighten them out to be able to remove that top piece. And right now I am looking for a breaking part on this heat element. Now on this side, everything looks okay, so we're gonna go ahead and turn it over and see how it looks in the other side. And it doesn't take too long to realize that that's where it's broken. So this might be your issue if it's not heating and it's just coming on. As you see, the wire is broken right there, and that is the reason why it's not heating at all. Now, like I said, we're gonna go ahead and replace only the heat element. So this terminal has like a little leg right there that you have to straighten out to be able to push that in. Remove the other terminal, the red terminal that's still connected, and straighten that little tip right there to be able to push that terminal in and remove it from the housing. Once you remove both of them, the whole heat element will come right off. And this is the new heat element. You can find it in the description of this video. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and link the OEM part for Samsung. There's a Whirlpool part that will work on this unit as well, which is the same exact part with just a different part number. And you can find 8 aftermarket one, the one I'm using right now, which is even more affordable, and you can replace it, the whole housing as well. So I'm gonna link all of them on the description of this video, just for you to choose which one works best for you to replace. Now, as you see, I was kind of squeezing the housing, and right here you have to make sure those wires do not touch the metal, because it will be ground and it can create a shortage. So just kind of bend it that way it's not touching any parts of the metal, because this is the actual heat element. Now, as I was saying, this housing, sometimes it kind of opens up when you take it apart, so you have to stretch it. You have to squeeze it back in his own size, that way the other piece goes in. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you that in a little bit. Now go ahead and install those terminals where it goes, and go ahead and bend at least one of those little tips right there, that way it doesn't go back in. And as you see, I'm just adjusting everything, that way everything aligns. If you have to squeeze the bottom panel, just like you see how I'm gonna do over here, I always kind of squeeze it in, because it always opens up when you take it apart. So when you do this, when you put it back in, do both. Do the same thing in the bottom one and the top, that way you don't have any issues to align where the screws goes. Remember that some of the screws grabs the actual heat element, and you gotta make sure that the screw that you're gonna be attaching to it goes through the heat element housing as well. That way it's, see, one of the more complicated thing is trying to stretch this little male to female tabs right there. That is the worst. And sometimes people go ahead and order the whole housing just because there's two things. I don't even know why they do this kind of thing. As you see, I'm trying to align it with needle nose pliers just to align the screws where they go. And then after that, go ahead and install all the Phillips screws all the way around where they should be at. If you want to watch this video with more details, just go ahead and go to your settings in your YouTube and put it -2, and it will be like kind of slow motion, because we're trying to do this video kind of fast, that way it's not that long and it's not that boring. Now, if those wires terminals goes in too easy and they not grabbing right, go ahead and clip it in with a needle nose plier or any pliers. Go ahead and just, use your pliers to adjust them, and you see it's going in and it's grabbing the terminals really good. Remember, the old terminals, maybe they're not the same of the new ones. After you do that, just make sure the heat element give you good continuity. That's a new one, so it should be fine. And just touch metal just to make sure it's not ground. I'm gonna give you a demonstration right now what it would do if one of those wires from the actual heat element inside is touching metal. I see right now I'm making it happen. I'm pushing it one of those wires down. Here's in a slow motion, and if it would be touching metal, it would give you continuity. If you don't own a tester, just make sure none of those wires inside from the heat element are touching any metal off the housing. If you have to replace the whole housing, you just have to remove this screws. Sometimes it will be screws right there, but then you just lift everything out, disconnect the wires, and everything is going to be included, and just pull it out. Remember, it will be kind of screws around there. There's like a top right there, so you get the idea. Like I said, the best thing to do is replace the whole housing. Is easier, but it will be more expensive. I'm a technician, so when I find money like this, I let the homeowner know that it was some change here, and I just put it to the side or give it to the homeowner. Then we're gonna go ahead and put the drum, and this is another demonstration how to put the belt back in place. You gotta use one hand. You will not be able to see anything, but this is how you do it. Make sure you put it right and it's not upside down or backwards. And as you see, I'm just testing, make sure everything is fine right there. After that, go ahead and sit these two wheels on the bottom of the drum, because that's where it goes. And then go ahead and put the panel and the slacks right there. You have to fit them into a hole, and then it will drop and it will align the holes for the screws. Now go ahead and put all 5 screws all the way around. Make sure they're tight. Install and connect the humidity sensor right there. And now we're gonna go ahead and install the front panel. And right now we're gonna go ahead and, like I said, this top panel have to be towards you. That way you have a plate with the green wire right there, because if you gotta lean it to the wall, you're not gonna have enough wire to work with. Once you do that, go ahead and connect the light harness, and go ahead and put it back in the clamps. Very self-explanatory. As you see, all those clamps are in place. Now go ahead and install the 3 screws that you have removed earlier to be able to remove the front panel. And if this kind of bend, if you did it with a flat head or a putty knife, go ahead and bend it back and just make sure it clamps back in place. Install these 2 front screws, which those screws are different from the other ones, just to let you know. Plug the dryer back in, and everything should be working fine at this point. Put my hand inside, and obviously it was heating. That means this was a success. Thanks for watching.